Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right.
Good.
Yeah.
Let me find the agenda for this.
So, it looks like you're logged in as a guest, which is fine. I made
On
Zoom, which is, it's fine, whatever you're logged into. I made your VMware account on Zoom and Derek's that you guys are co-hosts.
okay.
So you guys could start this meeting and record without me.
Let me just log out and switch accounts. I will be right back.
Oh, you don't have to. I can make you a co-host no matter what now that I'm here. Just I can only set it previously to something within VMware. But once you're here, it's fine.
I just I have to constantly switch between my personal account and my VMware Zoom account. So hello.
Hi Wayne. On mine it was really easy to switch, and I made my picture different on them so I could know which one I was logged into, because I kept getting confused too. I'm like, why are my meetings not here? Oh right, that's in the other account.
Yeah.
It's constantly switching back and forth. So I made the executive decision that I was like, I know Janae's not ready for this, but I have to start this calendar and I have to move things over to the VMware account because I can't do this anymore because I keep messing up.
I just dropped the agenda into the chat. So that is that. And then Derek asked a really good question yesterday about that agenda that we need to resolve when we get there.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Derek and I watched the GitHub conference presentation about how they open source the docs.
Yeah.
I've heard her speak before, so it wasn't a ton of new information for me, but still cool. I just want to see like how they are able to motivate their community to help, you know.
Yeah.
That's why I'm interested in following what they do. Because they seem to be more
really cool.
concerned about tooling questions right now, and I don't think they've thought about community engagement. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I would have thought they would have been more interested in community engagement. So how interesting.
I think that's why. I just don't think they have had experience with it yet to know that it's not enough to just build it and they will come, you know. But maybe because they're GitHub, it'll be different. I don't know. Maybe just because they're GitHub, it will be. So
maybe, and they're also, maybe. I was gonna say, and they have all these people that are Microsoft that didn't used to be that are also like, hey, but now Microsoft, and I'm like, but is that better or just different, or is it added? I don't know. Yeah. I think just because it's GitHub, they would probably build it and they would come. Yeah, I agree with that.
Take care of that thing quick. But yeah, I opened an issue as part of it when I was looking at when they were talking about their guides and how their docs went. There was an interesting thing where they talked about there's an area on their GitHub Actions docs where you can search for stuff and it will show like examples that are like these little cards that will be parsed and will appear.
Neat.
And it was like, if we had like a database of salt commands, like of examples, and people could just be like, I'm trying to do this thing, and it'd be kind of cool as a future thing.
I was actually talking to Gareth about this earlier. So, in the open hour, we had somebody ask the question, and they asked it very plainly. If I'm using Salt to update the Salt version on my minions, how do I go about doing that? And when I look in the docs, it's not obvious to me that's what those docs mean. And I was like, is this that we're not using the right words? Or are we not using all the words that we should be using? I'm not sure what it is, but we have a mismatch there. And I think we do that sometimes a lot.
Anyway. Very good.
Yeah, and I also just dropped in the chat that I also opened a GitHub Docs issue about, because as we've been researching how the contributing guide and all that other stuff works, the GitHub Docs don't fully go into detail about the things that we've already discovered in our research.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, these are undocumented and I don't fully understand how some of them works. Like we have the weird, interesting position where, because we have multiple files called contributing, that there's also nothing listed in the, there's nothing listed in the GitHub Docs that says this one will take priority if it's placed in GitHub, or this one will take priority if it's in the root of your repo, or this one will take priority if it's in your Docs.
It doesn't clarify that. You have to do it through experimentation, and I agree. So it's both a docs, like the docs should describe what actually happens, but also I want it to not work that way. So I need to open up a feature to be like, or feature request to be like, can this be fixed? Like it doesn't work the way it should work or how I think it should work. But yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if that's not there for a reason. Like do you know what I mean? Like
I think they just didn't think about it.
Yeah.
That's what I think too, but
right.
Maybe not.
Yeah, because they're probably like, well, no, they probably weren't thinking, what about when people have them multiple? And they also probably didn't. One thing that I don't know if it's just that GitHub, if like the docs team isn't even aware of that contribute endpoint feature that gets auto-generated, that one that shows here are all the good first issues and here's the contributing guide button. Because I found no documentation on how that page is even made. Like we only found it through experimentation stage after you showed me, hey, we have this contribute page. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, look, huh?
Yeah.
It was interesting. And
room for improvement.
Yeah, I wonder, because GitHub would be rather large now. I mean, when they started, they were smaller and their docs used to be very different, and they've changed a lot since they got acquired by Microsoft. And I think for the better overall, but I'm not used to it. So I think it's me that's struggling myself. I don't think that's their documentation.
Agreed,
I just don't always.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think it is normal as like it's as a technical writer, you don't always think of these things. Like it's not enough to document the task, you have to document the result too, and how did the result work. Like there needs to be a step that's like, did I do the task successfully? How do I know I did it successfully?
Right. I agree.
And another issue I should open up that's related to us and it's related to CVE processes, is that they have a workflow description on how CVEs can work, and I can open drafts and stuff, but their API lists nowhere on how you can in any automated fashion work with it. And so either it's a hidden public API or it's not implemented in the API, or it is implemented in the API and it's not documented.
Right. Yeah, and I would bet the latter. Yeah.
So, working group time.
Transitioning.
A couple of announcements. The next Docs Clinic is next week, 1 week. And Derek, you're going to take that one since you weren't able to do the previous one. Is that fair?
Yeah, and Wayne helped me with the Twitch stuff.
Wayne for the win.
Yeah, and I did make a guide for. It's all in Markdown, but it's not in any repo or anywhere. I'm like, where do I put this? Because it's
it's kind of an internal.
It's
internal to me sounds like Confluence, but.
Well, I wonder if it is. I actually question that.
I was just gonna say, I'm a huge fan of the idea of like default to open, right? So
that's kind of what I think too.
That people shouldn't see something, then it should just be out in the public.
Like, let's not put the code in there, but just you can say, here's who you ask for the code, or something like that. So.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, because we each individually have to get a code anyway, and so it's sort of, we wouldn't be sharing any passwords even internally in it, and so it'll be a thing where. It does just talk about the process, how to find who's at mods and stuff, which, by the way, anyone in public can find that out with commands if they know the right commands. So like everything that's in there is publicly available and people can dig for it, right? And so it's just a matter of that we don't have a place. I mean, we have Docs Hub, and that was mentioned. We have Docs Hub, but but then, we have the community wiki, I guess. But I also don't know how I feel about the community wiki. So
yeah, the community wiki was really a stopgap until we got the community site more up and running. And so we're still in that stopgap phase.
I'm okay with it, like temporarily living in Doc Hub as a stopgap for this, if we need, until we figure out the next step,
I'll open it up and dump the markdown right now in an issue in Docs Hub.
Sounds good to me. It's nice and easy. And then just gets it up there. Then it's documented.
Yeah, that's always my thing. And that's like, I'll just upload stuff to my personal repo if I'm like, I literally have no clue where this would belong. Okay, here's this thing in my personal repo. And okay, now it's up there. So at least if I get hit by a meteor tomorrow,
it's available.
But and table it at, like, let's not forget to ask the question of where it should go. So don't just that is your action item, Derek. Figure out where it'll go someday.
Yeah, this is something that I think we don't do a very good job of this kind of culturally in our world, and I would love to know what you guys think about this. It's to come back to things where we said that. And I think everybody kind of has their own thing that they do. Some people use some sort of reminder app, and some people write things down and
it's tricky
paper. And so I don't want to prescribe anything, but I feel like there's times that we need to prescribe something.
Yeah.
It's tricky because it's not for this group to answer. That's why it's not. I mean, it's a different thing. So
yeah, but I think that we've actually talked about this a lot, and I think it's the reason that the table of contents looks the way that it does. And we've talked about doing that, like the card sorting, and it's because everything just sort of grew organically. We never came back to it, and so we do need a way to come back to things, even if we're not the group that's going to answer that question. So I would put it as a follow-up action here, since it came here. That in 2 weeks. So tell us what you did with that, because we'd love to know.
I'll tell you what.
I feel like I need to have it as an issue in a board somewhere that I'm going to see, or something, or I put a Slack reminder or something.
I have
sure, however you do it.
I have a future section that I keep for all my stuff for working group. I'll just add it to that for now. So where should the Twitch guide and other internal-ish documentation go?
There's a few things that are, I love opening things up and having it be open. Something that I was kind of surprised at was when I came back to the team, that the triage process was in Confluence, which is really, really hidden, even to us and to us internal. And I was kind of like, I would have thought this would have been an MD file or an RST file in the open repo. Right. So, and I am going to put it there eventually, because that's where it belongs.
Well,
this is a good point. There should almost be.
I'll tell you what the Good Docs does. They have a governance repo. I don't know if you want something like that, but that's what they do.
So, where it talks about just how they do things.
How they govern their community, yep. And it's mostly internal stuff. It's like, here's who's on the steering committee. Here's what it takes to be worthy of being on the steering committee. Here's, like, so that's where we do that kind of stuff. So
yeah, this one, it doesn't seem so much like governance, but I'm not opposed to exposing it, because it's just sort of like, hey, this is what we did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right? This seems like a great idea for like everything, because for one, you know how when we need for one, we already, our community information in the SALT repo is already updated. Like there were things like when, there's stuff that's updated there. I know we're gonna have to update calendar stuff there. We're gonna have to, for links, we're gonna have to update. I don't know if it still says Cassandra in places. There's gonna be a lot of things that, like, if the community wiki, if information about community stuff, if this Twitch related stuff, if how things are governed in SALT itself could all be its own doc set that's public, it'd be really great, because then the main SALT repo can merely link to it. Mm-hmm. And that repo is more, it can evolve and be modified faster because it's outside of the whole test Sweet.
So maybe it does belong in Docs Hub.
Yeah, or well, the thing is,
or
Docs
governance
Hub,
or community or something.
I feel like a different, because Docs Hubs has 55 issues that are mostly duplicates from other repos and really needs a lot of cleanup. And I don't really know, and that has its own beast. But maybe Docs Hub is the place.
For now, it may be. Since we don't have that somewhere else.
Yeah, I think it should be for now. Okay. And okay, I haven't even finished going through the announcements, and we're 15 minutes into the meeting.
Welcome to us.
A good discussion, and that's why I didn't close it down. But I want to. The rest of the announcements are normally we would have a Docs working group 2 weeks from today. But that date is December 24th, and I think we should cancel it. Are we in agreement? Okay. Yes. Therefore, the next working group will be December 10th. December 31st is the next Docs clinic, and I propose we also cancel that one. Agreed? Okay.
So I would actually maybe even cancel the second. I was thinking about that for the open hour too, because I think most people are probably taking that off, and we'll all get back on the 4th. A majority of us. So you may want to just consider that. I mentioned it today knowing
I'm okay with that, so I mean, it's another thing we need to talk about, because what we've been doing is I didn't want to mess with the calendar because I don't have access to it. But that means that the Docs working group doesn't meet for another month and a half.
It's a long time.
And so we need to, if I'm okay with like that, but that's a very long time to go without meeting. And so either that or we need to like set the calendar anew as of, for the new year, and like, so.
Or we need to have an off-schedule meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine too.
And that might be something we want to figure out, like what happens if we can't meet, like, because usually that means we cancel for, and basically, so now we're only meeting for working group like once a month these days. Maybe we're okay with that cadence, but anyway, that just keeps happening. So
as we get into the new year, right, we'll have a couple of holidays in the beginning, and then we're going to do spring, which is like it's going to happen every week for a long time, right?
Yep.
And so keep that in mind. We're not going to be sprinting. We're going to be doing a marathon.
So I thought I was opening a PR, and I actually just committed directly to Docs Hub. So we got Twitch in the Twitch guide there. Here's the link to the new guide.
And if you don't like what he pushed, then open up your own merge request or pull request.
Some statements about that, you can suggest. But at the Docs working group, we get things done. So that's what happens here.
It's funny. I was mentioning to somebody about the community repo, and I was like, just push to master. I think it was Janae, and she was like, oh. I was like, yeah. You're uploading a document.
Yeah.
All right. So when will the next Docs working group be? Just for the sake of my calendar, like my notes.
We could. We could. So because you don't want that larger gap, could we have that the Docs clinic that would be within that period be a Docs working group instead?
Yeah, maybe that's like the way to do it. I need to be able to, like, is Janae who we have to go through to make calendar updates now?
Oh, yeah.
No, actually it's me. I own the calendar and I can give you
Yay, okay. So if I don't, like, I just feel like with people like Janae or Cassandra, where I was like, I'm adding to their very busy life and I don't want to give them another task, but for some reason I don't feel that way about you, Sage. And maybe I should.
Yeah, let's just pile it on. Can we add Sage some more tasks?
That's so funny.
Maybe that's the problem. I know.
I think it's because I'm always like, let me just give you access so that you can change things yourself, because that's my default.
So no, so let's just make it the week after January 2nd, which is the 7th, right? Okay.
Sounds great.
We'll figure it out.
You all edit access. In fact, I thought about, so the people that actually are running things on that calendar should have access to it to edit. And if you don't, that's probably just an oversight because I was actually trying to change things.
That does
very
help.
Hastily.
And then I don't have to bug you, Sage, or anyone. I can just do it.
So Wayne, I added you too, and I have to think about who all these people are because there's some people that they still come to me and they don't want to change the calendar, but they probably run a group, and that's fine. The few people that do that, it's usually fine. But I'd prefer to just give you access to it to do it yourself.
Sounds good. Okay, that makes it easy.
There you go.
All right, we are through the announcement. And now we're on to talking about, I've been calling it the SALT training manual, but now it sounds like we need to actually decide what we're going to call this guide of Alan's. Let me see what he calls it.
Yeah, what did he call it? I would be interested to know.
Calls it something like SALT networking. I can't remember. Whatever it's titled. SALT network
SALT network management.
That sounds so specific.
It does. No, we're not going with that title. Sorry.
Okay, I was like,
it informed us. Now we. Derek proposed the SALT admin guide. Here's my issue with SALT admin guide. I actually just think it's SALT user guide. Like when I hear admin guide, I think I need to know how to configure, and I need to know how to maintain, and I need to know how to like set up all my users, and that's what I hear when I think of admin guide. It's like I need the user guide plus, you know. I need more than the user guide because I'm administering this kind of thing.
I like user guide.
I like user guide too. That's a good call.
Okay, so there we go. That was easy.
We did something quickly.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Wayne, with that naming convention?
Yeah, SALT user guide. That sounds pretty
all right.
Okay. So then so Derek was wondering what to call the repo. So then would we call it Open SALT user guide? Just swap out admin for user?
Open user guide?
I would probably just call it open.
There we go.
So we haven't.
Wait. SALT open user guide. Wait. So how would you say?
Or SALT project. I don't know.
Right. We haven't totally announced SALT project, but I alluded to it today in the open hour, and I think people have sort of said it. So do we want to call it SALT project?
Yeah, maybe SALT project user guide.
Sure.
Something like that. Is SALT -project, is that, or is it?
It's
SALT
one
project?
word.
Well, it makes me think. It actually kind of makes you think of the book we're reading right now that talked about the different usage of these words and how project often is, when it's used for repos, is also in relation to a community. And I don't know if SALT open.
We could just call it.
What do we call SALT? I mean, what do we call it? Is it just SALT?
We call it SALT.
So what is the SALT user guide?
So it would probably be the SALT user guide, and I would probably call the repo, since it's going to be under the SALT stack org, so it's going to be in your path, right? We could just call it user guide in the repo.
Yeah.
I like SALT user guide.
I still like SALT user guide because if that repo moves around or when it's local on your system,
it's true.
I mean, you can rename. You can name it whatever you want on your own system. And
I just wanted. We could go that simple. That's the point.
Which is fair.
And I'm thinking, here's a link I'm putting in the chat that I'm thinking it probably belongs here for where a new repo should be made. We're talking about, because there's been a discussion on GitLab versus GitHub, mostly because of all the back and forth with the acquisition of VMware, and SALT exists on GitHub and everything else doesn't.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a recent change.
Right. And everything, like the POP universe, is certainly not migrating to GitHub as far as I can understand the future of it. And and GitLab CI has really, really been such an awesome experience. And it's and I remember GitHub Actions, and it still is a little bit rough for me to do stuff in GitHub Actions.
Yeah,
it is.
And I like that GitLab CI also has under the SaltStack org has access to our own runners in AWS, kind of like
Yes.
by default.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we can keep this. So
that was the main thing I wanted to ask about is it future proof? Because I thought I heard, I really don't remember. I just only half pay attention to these conversations. Are we like, does Salt get to stay on GitLab? I remember there was a conversation about that.
Yeah, from what
I think that's still an open question. And I think that if we have a strong opinion, we can lobby for that. I
feel like
think we do, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like I saw a different discussion about people using GitLab. So as far as I'm aware, there's no like, oh, we shouldn't be using GitLab at all.
Because they do have an open source component, right? So
yeah,
I don't see why we can't.
Everything in the POP org, everything from what I've heard from like Bryce and company too, has been if there are stuff that we've been wanting to use in GitLab that were private, you should be having a different discussion internally or something because of But these open source projects.
So.
Yeah, this will be public. That whole because if let's say you don't log into GitLab, if you open it in just a private session, you go to the SaltStack org, you'll see all the open source projects. You'll see you'll see the POP subgroup. You'll see the open subgroup, which is what I just linked. Is that is accessible publicly. Our build docs repos public. Our get started Sphinx material SaltStack. And so
I have a question here. Derek, the one you linked us to was, maybe I'm not seeing okay. I just didn't, it had a ... for the parent group. So I just wasn't sure if you were putting it in SaltStack docs or SaltStack open docs, but it's in open docs. So good. Thank you. Cause I did not want us to accidentally put it in the enterprise docs section. So that would be bad.
Yes. Yeah. I think, yeah, that's interesting. So it sounds like there's some question about the enterprise bits and whether or not those end up living in GitLab, but from the open perspective, because I know one of the big things that we had discussed in the past was like a lot of the GitLab offered a lot more power and features and just different things that we can do that we just simply cannot do at all in GitHub. And so basically the determination at some point in the past was we would be doing everything on GitLab because more power is better. And the only thing that we would have on GitHub basically was Salt
itself. Yeah.
Itself, because
yes.
Everybody is used to it being there, and that would be a horrible migration. So let's not do that.
And we still get access from other pipelines in GitLab to the mirrored version of Salt. So if there was ever stuff we were doing that was mixing with it in a GitLab CI pipeline, we'd be able to make use of it just fine.
Well, cool. I'm totally fine doing GitLab. I just wanted to make sure that we could.
I think there's some unanswered questions about how that's going to look in the future.
But at least for now.
It's available. And it's available for sort of a long time before we have to make some of those smaller decisions and
I
how
think
that's going to impact.
For this project, it would be an easy migration to GitHub.
For docs.
In theory. Yeah, just, move the RST files over. It's not that horrible.
Yeah, and just convert whatever your things are to some GitHub Actions calls if you're. But I think that with Git, my main concern I think was that because we're no longer subscribed. I was so super concerned what happens to our CI, but that was cleared up to me where I just didn't realize that we're not paying for GitLab's runners. Like GitLab hosted runner minutes. We're using our own runners.
We use our own.
And we could use our own even with the free tier. And so I'm like, okay, that clears up all my concerns around that.
Yeah, a lot of things. Yes. And so then it becomes more like, okay, but then how are we functioning in GitLab as opposed to GitHub? Because I think we still have a lot of cleanup. Like if you go look at pop and item, there's a lot of cleanup to do there. And then what is going to live there? And I'd love to I was talking with Daniel Robbins about this too, that it's like we do need to have some set criteria that says this is how we do things, or this is how we're going to do things. And then as we change that, we need to go back and change that document, sort of like a design document for even process.
Yes.
And that would be a simple document, but we need to do it. And because it's so simple, we haven't in the past, but let's do it anyway. Let's get started with that. And that's something that I think I can really help with. And I think this team can, that we could do something simple and to the point and explicit, and then move forward with it.
And by that, you mean documenting the process for new open source projects under the SaltSec org?
Yep.
Then we should also then really review, because VMware has a lot of guidance on how we should be open sourcing our projects.
That's right.
And so
we need to follow that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so whatever our guides end up becoming, it could definitely like be take that as the baseline and expand it and to be specific to Salt. I definitely would love to help, because that you're absolutely right with it, is that there's a little bit of Wild Westiness to it at the moment. Okay, it's not just a little bit, it is kind of
it's purely, a lot.
Yeah. It's like
and that's okay.
Go and do the thing. Yeah. And so
but I'd love to say you have the ability to go and open a new repo as you see fit, but here's some structure to it, and here's what you're going to do when you're done with it. Like that full life cycle, right?
Yep, I love that, because I get that creators want to create and they don't want to be bothered thinking about maintenance tasks, and I get that. But the rest of us who have to clean up after it.
Not your mom. And if she worked here, she'd write code.
That's right. So, no, I'm in favor of that. That sounds good. And to be frank, Derek, I think you are the right person to do this in collaboration with Daniel. So.
Yeah, because there's a whole lot that goes into that, because it's all going to be like, what type of project is this? What type?
Yeah, because it's tooling, it's content, it's permissions, it's all the things.
And it'd be SRE collaboration too, because I want us to eventually get to a point. Yeah, I want us to eventually get to a point where we have something, because people can use Troposphere, for example, to manage stuff inside of GitLab. But if we had something where we developed an item GitLab tool, we would then have the ability to do an equivalence. And I thought
Daniel was working on that. Something
he was. He has like an early stages one where he has at least the exec module piece that's saying,
cool.
Well, it's outlined. Because he wants it. You could tell by the code. He's like, I just want to see what issues are mine and stuff like that. And that's what I want. I want that same thing. So.
And he wants to see that across projects.
I think that would be his goal. I think that'd be because then you'd be able to type in, either provide a list of projects, or maybe there'd be a flag where you could just say, show me everything assigned to me.
But still only in GitLab.
Still only in GitLab. If we had an item GitHub, then the cool thing is because ItemWorks as a plugin based module, right. And so then you'd be able to just have item at your command line target both.
Yeah, and we still have the option. I haven't started a POC of Tracker because I just didn't know if we would even have time to do it if I started it. But we could still look at something like Tracker that's super simple that would then go across both. It would do 2 different platforms of source control. And that's free to us because it's owned by VMware, and we can expose it to guests in the community.
And
very cool.
Still my favorite.
And also, as to step back and to clarify, did we say we want the repo to be called user guide or Salt?
Yes, decisions that have been made. Salt user guide.
Salt user guide.
Okay.
Salt-user-guide.
All right, then I have already a to-do where I'm gonna go submit.
Yep. That's exactly where I was going. I was gonna review our decisions. The other decision we made is it's going to go in GitLab. So Derek, I almost called you Eric. I don't know why.
Close.
Action item for you.
All right.
I do that sometimes, Derek, Eric. I don't know. And then sometimes, what do I call Glacier? Something weird. So I don't know.
He has such a unique name. I'd be interested to know what you call him instead.
There was this time I was calling him something really wacky, and I don't know why.
I think it's because we were all doing a lot of work at the time.
Sure.
And, it was a lot of things were easily scramblable in our brains.
Sure. It's just very, very interesting. So, you know, like I answered a page, it's close enough. And sometimes I don't even notice. I'm like, sure, me, I know who you mean. Close enough. I had a customer when I worked in professional services at EMC who was Asian, and he called me Sega, and I never answered to that. I just didn't know that was me. Sega.
Kind of fun though.
Oh, you mean me? Sure. Okay. Sega.
I always think of that opening Sega.
I know.
Audio clip.
Sega would be kind of a cool name, but it's not your name.
But I don't answer to it. I'm like, who?
Hey, Sage is also a cool name because there's so many meanings there. So, because I was usually like, when I was thinking of different like salt names, I'm like Salt Mage, and that sounds like that. Now that sounds too close. Salt Sage. I'm like, Salt Sage would be kind of a cool name too.
We can't do Salt Sage.
No, we can't do that.
It's not gonna work. I like Salt Hero.
I like Salt Hero a lot too. I like Salt Hero and Salt Sidekick so much.
I do too. I like them.
And I will lobby for it if you need someone to lobby, I'm already lobbying with DC and Serena for it. They ghosted me on it, but I'm like,
go thumbs up my little comment in the
SPP,
to show your support. Or a rocket ship or something.
Meanwhile, returning to the task at hand.
Back at the ranch.
The user guide, which we're now calling the SALT user guide. I was hoping Alan would be here. He accepted my invitation to come to this meeting, but he did not come to this meeting. So I will take an action item to follow up with him. He and I did have a conversation, apparently, because my task was to make a community-friendly version, a non-Salt Stack branded version of his guide, so that we can begin breaking it into pieces and creating tickets around converting those pieces. And he said he actually had the guide already in a modular form, so that sounded awesome. And he said also that he is going to make some improvements to it, so he recommended maybe not working on it this month, but that wasn't a problem because we weren't going to work on it this month. But so I will take an action item to follow up with him and say, hey, can you show me your modular version of this guide? And then I don't mind taking on the task of thinking through, like, so in my mind, let's talk about the logistics of this. Like, so I think with Alan's guide, he's got different chapters, and so I think we could have a ticket for each chapter. I don't remember how many chapters are in it. Let me look.
How big is the chapter?
And it actually has each chapter broken up into sections. Too.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, Salt Overview has 4 segments. Chapter 2, so he has how many? I think he has 18 chapters, and each chapter generally has somewhere between somewhere between like 4 to 7 pieces in it. So what we could probably do is break it up. Like, we could have the conversion task be either at the chapter level or at the section level.
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
Go small.
Yeah, I agree. Like, that way more people can engage. So what I imagine we could do is kind of like build out the tickets in whatever we need to decide which. This repo that I just answered my own question. This new repo, we can build out the tickets into this repo. Each ticket could say, it could have a link to the segment that you're going to convert to RST, and then it can also, I think maybe all tickets, or we should have like a project README that says, here's how to write an RST if you don't know how to do it. Here's how to contribute to this project. So that'll be our README. So we need to build out a README for this repo. that is geared for this project, and then we can maybe revise the README for long-term use, possibly. And then we'll build out the ticket. Each ticket will have a link to, okay, take this segment, convert it to RST. When you're done, open up a pull request, and somebody will review it.
What is it in now? Is it an MD file?
It's a Google Doc.
Oh, when you say modular, then you're saying it's a lot of Google Docs then? Like a lot
I don't know. That's why I need to follow up with him and understand it better. But if he has like each section, like maybe he has each chapter as a thing. I don't know how he does his magic to bring it all together into this final doc, but
does he do it through a pipeline? Does he build it?
Yeah, because if it's somehow modular, I wonder if he's using flat files and using something like Pandoc or something to merge them and convert them.
That could be.
I don't know. It looked really nicely formatted, and usually Pandoc is like, "Hey, here's this garbage I vomited. Do you and then,
it is.
And yeah, so
I'd be
Docs,
surprised.
Yeah, Google. It looks heavily done in Google Docs, so it'd be interesting to see what he means.
I wonder what he's using. Yeah.
So yeah, I need to know, and I hope he was
it out.
Where
so just some open questions. Maybe what we need to do is also just have some open questions as action items for Alan.
Yeah.
That he doesn't need to attend, but we have some open questions we'd like to ask you, and if you could answer.
Yeah, the other thing is that I also don't want to get stuck on Alan's. I don't want to get stuck on his participation, because let's say he's like, "Hey, I really want to add a thing before you do it," but he just doesn't get around to it. I'd rather that
he can add it in the repo.
Exactly. I'd rather we just get to throwing stuff in there.
Yep.
And then when he is able to maybe,
when he is available.
Yeah, because he's a community member, and I don't really know what his availability might be like. So.
Yeah, I would say like I'm okay with him still continuing to make some tweaks and changes this month, but after a certain point we say no, but we're not at that point
to his original
yet.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what we could probably do is just ask him, we'd like to set this date. What date is good for you? Because we're thinking in the first quarter of the calendar year at some point, because we'd like to do this. I'm sure he'd be amenable to that.
And it'll give us time in the meantime to just get the repo set up.
Exactly. We still have things
we have things to do.
And,
like it would be unreasonable for us to say, you can't make any more edits, but you can't make them in our repo either. We need to have a place for him to make edits. So,
Yep. That's true. I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah. So we need to ask him about how he's got this structured.
Mm-hmm.
If it's already broken up into segments. Otherwise, we can just use this big Google Doc and link to the segments of the doc once we have the version of it that we're sharing with the community.
Yeah, because it has the headers, since it's using the Google, it's in Google Docs in a way that you can link to the headers. And like you said, after we strip out like SaltStack and training specific stuff, then it could become maybe an open facing document, and I actually want to depending. Well, there's some other stuff that's unrelated we got to talk about too at some point. Probably not in the working group.
Yeah, there will be a style guide. Well, there's the new style guide that's going to go with the new branding that it'll need to.
That's fair too.
That's fine.
Because
that was pretty much what I was thinking about.
Yeah,
but that's exactly right. But you're right though. Like even for branding, we do need to think about issues of style and make sure because whenever in the past when I've done migration projects for other companies, they're like, we want you to migrate it, but the reason why we got a writer was because we want to make sure that you're checking it to ensure it conforms to our style guides, and so we might as well get extra mileage out of it.
Yeah, I imagine that it's going to be part of that README doc that you were talking about, where we're saying this is how you're going to, convert this to an RST file, and then here's the style guide that you'll need to follow. So if this isn't in this way, then we'll need to make some changes as you convert it.
This is actually a really good opportunity for something I've been wanting to do also, which I really, really need to take the Google technical writing course thing. We got like a part 1 and part 2, and they're rather short.
Yeah, they are.
And because I want to not only take that, but there are a lot of style guide things that can be automated. There are a lot. It can be going. Are the word when you're talking about salt minion? Is it referenced in the way that our style guide says it should be? Are is the first letter capitalized or not? If it's there's all sorts of minor things that if we have a style guide,
then when it can be enforced in pre-commit or something, right?
Exactly. Instead of like if the style guide says, hey, don't use the word, don't use second person. I don't know what exactly the style guide's. I need to really look at it myself. But if it says
I haven't looked at it either.
Okay. But I do want to pause on that. We're not using Google's developer style guide here anymore. I know that's a sudden sea change, but I'm just mentioning that we're using an internal VMware, and it's annoying to me that it's internal, but we're using an internal VMware style guide now. And they haven't told me what they based their style guide on. So we need like an external reference, but we can break from VMware and say, you know what? We're gonna just stick with Google Developer Style Guide.
Yeah, either
for
way,
the
we need
developer
a public...
style guide. Is that for the developer style guide? Is that what you're saying? Or
well, here's what it is. Is that to make our life easier, we need to just defer to a parent style guide.
Sure.
And then say, like, we have a style guide that says, like, here's our style guide. It's Google or Microsoft or whatever we want to pick. I actually prefer Microsoft over Google, but setting that aside. And I know these are technical writer things that technical writers care about.
They're not that different, but okay. I mean,
no, they are. Anyway, so side note, like we just pick our style guide and it can be Google. I don't really care that much as long as we pick one. And then we just indicate here's the ways in which we have some specifics to salt. Like when you say master, this is how you refer to it. When you say minion, this is how you refer to it. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I haven't looked at it. I saw that she posted it. Janae gave us a style guide that's the new style guide from like a marketing standpoint for Salt Project. And I didn't know how deep that went. And I didn't know how much that affects other things.
Do me a favor and just link me to it and I will make sure I look at it.
Because didn't she post it in Salt Project -web channel?
Maybe she did. From her phone.
Yeah, and in my opinion, whatever we end up going with needs to be public, and also whatever we end up going with should be automated as much as possible because nobody will look at this style guide. Like
I agree.
Fact, I don't ever. If someone says go look at the Google style guide for this, I'm like, this is a book or a Microsoft style guide. I'm not going to go reference a book for this thing I'm doing, and no one will do it. And
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
However, the maintainers of this repo should be familiar with our style guide. That's my only distinction. I agree that our average user should not have to read the guide. We do need to call out the things that are specific to Salt that we really want people to pay attention to. And then whoever is maintaining this repo, which I'm assuming is you and me, Derek, we need to be familiar with the style guide too, so that we can enforce it. So
100%. Yeah.
So
let me see what that is because I did not find it. Did she send it in an email?
I think she sent an email. I remember looking at it in her VMware emails.
Oh, we're gonna have to train her better.
My new team only communicates by email. I hate it.
Oh my gosh.
I get emails all the time. And
there's so many emails. Oh my gosh. She did, and it looks like it's in Dropbox. So I was like, oh.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it had to be in there, I think, because of EKR.
Actually. That's fine. But I was like, I don't want to use Dropbox.
Yeah, we need a permanent home that is more everyone friendly.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have called this a style guide. I would have called this a mock-up. But that's different.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Like marketers and technical writers use style guide in different ways.
Yeah, this is more like a mock-up.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I only saw the title and was like, oh cool, I wonder how deep this goes. And I saw it was in Dropbox and was like, oh, look at that later.
That's funny. Okay, question for you. Okay, so Derek, your action is you're going to create that repo, do you want to take the first draft of the README, because you have all those nice things that you auto-magically include or that you copy over from some of our repos that like, you know, like, because a lot of those things will still apply to this project.
Yes.
So would you be willing to do that first draft of the README? And then we'll probably want to add some things that are specific to this project. But if we use your base template that you use for other projects, I think it'll get us most of the way there.
Yeah, I'll do all of that. Is I'll get the baseline contributing guide, which really, because there's a lot of generic stuff, you know, there's forking, branching, merge request stuff that really we've come to use as a standard in the SaltStack.org on GitLab.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'll get a lot of that in like the baseline stuff in there.
Yep.
And same with the README. And okay, actually 2 things come to mind. We generally, when we have a new open source project, we go, every open source project needs a license. Our default has been Apache license 2. Now there's something that gets a little wonky in the world of text is that you'll see people who go, let's use a Creative Commons license because we're talking about, it gets a little weird because when you're saying Apache, you're going, this is a software license. And then when you're talking about Creative Commons, that is a copyright/text license. And so I've seen sometimes repos use maybe a combination of both, one that's like a source code level and one that's like textual reuse level.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, do we want to have something that says this is Apache v2, but et cetera? And how would we go about making that kind of decision?
Yeah, that's above my pay grade to make that decision. Who can follow up on that one?
Right.
That's probably me. So
yes.
SourceOrg
you just got your action item, Sage.
So one of the people that I met with this week from Open Source Strategic Office within VMware, there's a compliance office for starting new open source projects within VMware, and they do have all this stuff sort of available to us. I haven't gotten it from her yet, but we did touch on CVEs, and we talked about licenses, and we talked very briefly about documentation and some style guides. We did not go deep into any of those, but I know that I have a resource that I can.
They might have a style guide.
They might. That's why I was like, so wait a minute, what are we talking about? Because they may have one for open source that's different, and I don't know. Yeah. So
could you, while you're looking into the license thing, see if they have a style guide too?
Yeah, I will.
That'd be handy.
I'm kind of looking for sort of like, show me everything that you do with a new open source project, because I'd like to kind of think of us that way so that we could get into compliance.
And this is good. It gives you a reason to do that too.
Yes.
Yep, it does. Because I know that we're not in compliance with with just sort of open source in general. So I imagine that we're not in compliance with what they want on a lot of fronts, and that's fine.
I'd love to make like a VMware open source compliance tool.
Love it, right?
You know, because and something that could actually check all of our repos for something, or
yes, and maybe they're using something. I don't know.
Maybe they already are. Yeah, good point.
They acted like a lot of the stuff with compliance is manual, so we'll be interested to understand what they do. Because I think we're going to scratch each other's backs. You know.
Yes. Yes.
That would apply to the future of template-based bootstrapping of projects too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fun times. Yeah, some fun stuff that I think is really exciting. And I think that this group and a couple of other, like, Wayne, are we actually calling what we called the R&D group? Do you guys call yourselves Next Gen? Because Tom tells us that's what you guys call yourselves. And I'm like, you do?
That might be new.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, you do? It's confusing. But I think that some of the stuff that's coming, some of the stuff that's coming out of this group is exciting and fun. But we need to also figure out how to get it ready for community. And so there's going to be a lot there. So I'm interested to really get with Stefka and really understand this compliance process and then bring it back to everybody.
Yeah, and so this gives this gives a reason to do that, just another catalyst for that. So excellent. All right, so Sage, you're going to follow up on licensing and style guide and all the things that touch. And let us see. So and then so Derek is going to create the repo and the base template for the README, and that which we can then customize later as we're getting ready to launch the project. I'm going to follow up with Alan to get more details about his supposed modular version of this guide and see what he wants to be the cutoff date for edits to that guide before we begin running with it. What are other things that how much does this depend on the material theme, Derek?
Well, there's actually two other questions that come to mind.
Yeah, yeah.
One of them is that depending on how Alan has this in that quote modular fashion, if it is already RST or not, and do we want to be an RST?
I sort of assumed you did, but
yeah, I would assume we did.
I just sort of made the assumption that we did just because of our tooling, and Sphinx is compatible with other with Markdown or the new Mist version of the Markdown parser. And so at RST, I suppose it makes the most sense because it can be imported into any other project, and we already have RST tooling done that.
If not RST, then what?
Markdown would be the only other one.
Just Markdown? Yeah. No, I don't like Markdown. I like RST better.
Okay, then let's do
for what we're doing. It needs to be RST.
Okay, and then the other one was you said Sphinx material theme.
Yes.
Yeah, so it really depends on how this guide's going to be hosted. Oh, go ahead.
So I have to drop. I'm going to make you the host.
Thank you for attending, Sage.
Okay, thank you very much, Sage. And let me know
if I have anything else.
I think you're good. So anyway, what was the question? What about material?
Yeah, it's what is the future of the material theme? Does the future of the material theme, we have some other people who might be looking at it and contributed to it and improving it. That'll be really cool.
Have you touched base with Nate this week at all?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Would you mind?
Yeah, let's put that on the list.
He was sick on Monday, but he's better now and he's been around. So.
Okay, then I do need to. That's been on my list that I've also been ignoring. So let's put that on my, if there's an action item list with the stuff listed, I need to do that because his changes will be a big improvement. And
yeah, I think we can at least use the version of material that we're using for the enterprise guide, imperfect, or the installation guide, imperfect as it is. I think it would still get the job done.
Agreed, because then we'd be able to even just when any updates happen to the material theme, just flip the version number up to increment it to the newest version that has the extra features we like.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so I'd say that, because the thing is, what's going to be interesting is that theme also needs to be modified based on whatever branding changes occur with our.
Yeah.
So that, because it has like the SaltStack logo, for example, and other stuff in there that need to be swapped with whatever logos get associated with the project.
And it sounds like those have been designed, so all we have to do is get one that's compatible with that hero.
Correct, and it needs to actually be in my opinion, and actually we should have this as another list item then.
Okay.
Make a open source public facing repo of open source related branding assets.
Ooh, because I agree with that.
Yeah, because then our theme, and honestly, any other open source project of ours will be able to pull and reference logos or anything else.
I strongly agree with that, and I don't see why not, because like now that we're kind of decoupled from SaltStack and Empathy, I think it's easier to do that because like the branding is decoupled essentially, right?
Yeah, and actually it would be cool to be able to have on our website a thing like, let's say someone's doing a news article or blog or something, to say, if you're looking for logos and stuff you want to have in your article and your post, check out this repo. It has all our, I don't know, like.
Oh yeah, I love this idea. And do you want to maybe start by floating that idea on the material theme for Sphinx channel?
Yeah.
Is that a good place to like the first like floating of the idea?
Yeah.
Unless you want to do it in a different channel.
Because I don't know.
Because I imagine that who needs to sign off on it is Janae.
It's people who aren't in that channel. Yeah, pretty much. Maybe she should be in that channel because it is the look of that.
Oh, she's there, isn't she?
Oh, she is?
Yeah, let me see. Oh, she's not. You're right.
Yeah, because where is it? Oh,
okay, because it seems to me like it's Janae who's. I mean, and you could probably
Janae
also
would be
just,
the main person to exactly. Yeah.
To just sign off and say, "Hey, I'm okay with this being open," but I don't see why not. Like, I really don't.
I'll invite her to that channel. And okay, cool. That is another action.
No, I love that, and so that that one's gonna be like. Can I give it to you to like start the conversation, and then we will
report
I will
back.
add it to future on the thing too, to make sure that we revisit it again, because I think that's important. Yeah. So you'll start the conversation with stakeholders, aka Janae.
Yeah, because what's going to be really cool is then whenever we build the SALT open documentation, then that, for instance, we create a PDF as part of that. That PDF can pull in the updated logos from that target repo as opposed to the ones that are hard coded in the repository.
Yep.
And so it just benefits all around. And yeah, I don't need to sell it. I know we're all on board with it, but cool.
All right. Well, I like that. And I think that puts us at time. Was there anything else that you thought of related to this project?
Not that I can think of. I think in the future we will need to make the decision on where exactly the admin guide will be accessible but that's
user guide.
Sorry, user guide. But that of course is dependent on the overall architecture of SALT project, IO, or future stuff. So anyway, different discussion. I don't have any other for today.
We do need to figure that out eventually, but for now it's good. So yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming then. I'll type up these action items and decisions that we made and put them in the notes, and I will post that probably in the next 10-15 minutes. So, alrighty. Well, thanks everybody, and see you around.
All right. See ya.
Bye.